So I feel like one of the first things that everyone was excited about when LLMs came out was like, oh, maybe Siri will actually be useful and able to answer questions.
You would think.
Yeah, we somehow haven't seen that yet. It's been taking forever. Well, because Apple was trying to develop their own Apple Intelligence and stuff for a while. So I can't say definitively that they bungled it because I'm not privy to that entirely, but it kind of seems a little bit like they bungled it because they inked a deal with Gemini.
Yeah, well, I think perceptions are reality too, right? So about 2 years ago, they came out and they made their entire developer conference all about AI and all this cool stuff that was coming. And then they had to push the release back, and then they pushed it back a bit more. And then they said, hey, you know what? We're not actually good at creating our own large language models. So they first inked a deal with OpenAI. And if you try to use Siri and ask it a complex question now, it'd go, do you want me to ask ChatGPT about that for you? And that's a little bit of an awkward handoff that always happens. And so they never had that full baked in experience. And it looks like, as we've said for the past few months, Gemini has been surging in its capabilities and has kind of become, I think, the front runner right now. I mean, they're all good at different things, which is why people call this like the jagged frontier. So each model has some capability that others don't and is better in some areas and worse in some areas. But Gemini just keeps getting better. And we had said a long time ago, Gemini should be the one that wins this race because of Google's dominance and access to data. And it looks like that's where they're going. And I think Apple's taking that bet. They're like, why would we need to spend billions upon billions of dollars developing our own when we never want that to be our core competency? And we can always just kind of build a system that is plug and play with the best in the business, and we'll ink these few-year deals. And then if Gemini, for some reason, sucks in 3 years, then we'll unplug it and plug it into Claude or plug it into ChatGPT, or maybe spend a little bit more time developing our own, or maybe on-device systems would be a little bit better. But I think it makes sense.
Yeah, Gemini is definitely out to eat the lunch of the other frontier model providers in a big way. Wait till you hear the price tag, Perry, if you haven't read up on this lately. So this is from a report from Disinformation from January 13th. They said, in another win for AI for Google lately, Apple announced on Monday that it will use Google's Gemini models to power its artificial intelligence features, including an upcoming updated version of its Siri voice assistant. Some of the features will launch this spring. We'll get deeper into that, but rumors are back half of February. And then other features, including Siri's like persistent memory, and then proactive features to say like, hey, you should leave early because there's traffic, or things that it would do preemptively. That is still completely in question mark land. We don't know anything definitive about that. But we do know a little bit about how the deal is going to operate. The information says, to maintain Apple's privacy, the Gemini-based AI will run directly on Apple devices. They're going to use a Gemma model, or its private cloud system, which is powered by Apple's own server chips rather than running on Google's servers. So they're not actually using Google's infrastructure, which is interesting. And apparently Google put significant engineering effort into getting a version of Gemini working on Apple's servers. I thought that was an interesting choice, that they wouldn't just use, through an API tunnel or whatever.
Well, I think for Apple buyers, right? So Apple has always been the one that says, when you do business with us, we're going to make your privacy one of our main priorities. Now, whether they actually achieve that all the time is maybe up for debate, but I think they can say that more with a straight face than most everybody else right now, because when you buy into the Apple ecosystem, you're not getting a lot of freeware, and so you're not necessarily just becoming the product. Anytime you start to use a Google server or service on their own servers, and it's not something that you're directly paying for, then you're realizing that you're releasing some control of that information, and they may benefit from it. So I think Apple's saying, hey, all the processing is happening on our side, gives their traditional customer base that little bit of extra feeling of safety and security. And maybe that pans out in actuality as well.
I mean, that makes sense. That's the walled garden is their whole thing, right?
Right.
They say that Apple can ask Google to tweak aspects of how the Gemini model works, but otherwise Apple can fine-tune Gemini on its own so that it responds to queries the way Apple prefers, so it doesn't have any Google branding or any of that sort of thing, because also Apple very big on keeping their own brand and their own style. They say that Apple's hoping, obviously, to improve answers from Siri when you ask questions that are about real-world knowledge or factual questions. So instead of awkwardly handing you off to ChatGPT or just saying, here's what I found on the web, and sending you a single Google search result, they're hoping that it will provide more detailed information. That's what we all want. They say, well, certain common Siri tasks, such as setting a timer, reminder, or sending a specific text message to a phone contact, will continue to be powered by technology stored on Apple devices. The new version of Siri would also be able to handle instances in which the customer's question isn't clearly understood. So, for example, if someone asks Siri to send a text message to their mother or sister, but the customer doesn't store their names that way in their contacts, the Gemini-based Siri could search through their messages to figure out which of their contacts is most likely to be their mother or sister, according to the person that they're getting this information from. Which, that's cool. Again, that's a very big data trust privacy thing. Feels a little invasive, but...
I think it's what you expect when you think about a seamless AI experience, though. So as long as you have maybe control over whether you turn that on or turn that off. But I think one of the main frustrations with Siri is that Siri has not had that expansive understanding of everything else. And so, as soon as you imbue a real large language model with memory and with access to other things that it can do stuff, then you start to realize the dream of what we want is the more Star Trek universe experience. And anytime you remove those capabilities, you end up with people who, I think in their mind, that expectation that it's going to do it is there. And so every time it hits that limitation, you kind of get frustrated.
Yeah. And I think that is the trade-off, right? And I don't think it is necessarily any more invasive because all of that information is already on that device and already stored on their servers and things like that. It just feels different to know that something is combing through it. Yeah. And then this is the price tag. The Apple-Google AI partnership has been a long time coming. In July, they reported that Apple had been considering using models from Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic. And in November of last year, Bloomberg reported that Apple would pay $1 billion annually to Google for the AI to power Siri. So it is a pretty hefty price. Billion bucks a year.
What are they? Let's do a quick Google search and see what the monetary value of search being Google on Apple devices is, right? Because that's the default search engine.
Oh, yeah. So according to CNBC, Google paid $26 billion in 2021 to become the default search engine on browsers and phones.
So at that point, Apple's going, you can give us $25 billion instead.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You can just keep the change.
So that's sort of the scoop. They're saying that the Apple spokespeople didn't comment about that figure, but told the information that the new Google deal wouldn't affect their agreement with OpenAI to tap ChatGPT for more complex queries. I don't see how that could possibly be true. And they say that here in the article. From what we can tell, the new Google deal would thoroughly marginalize ChatGPT. Because if Gemma's on the device and then it reaches out to Gemini for more advanced queries, when is it going to be reaching out to OpenAI?
Yeah, true.
And the last thing is from MacRumors.com, rumors about when it's going to be rolled out. They say that, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, it should be coming out in the second half of February. They'll start rolling out the betas to users, do a staggered rollout type thing. Gurman does not yet know if Apple plans to hold a full-out event to demonstrate the upgrades or if it will hold private briefings with the media. But yeah, available in beta in February, released to the general public in March or early April, according to him. So we should be seeing this soon. Okay. I personally haven't ever even had Siri send me to ChatGPT yet. I haven't had that happen.
You have to turn that on in the Apple Intelligence settings. So you have to intentionally enable that.
Interesting. I assumed it would be an opt-out kind of thing because everything has been pretty much so far.
Well, I know when I did it, I had to go intentionally turn it on, but I did it pretty early. It's been a lackluster experience at best.
I believe that. Just kind of a clunky.
And then every now and then, like, it times out. So if you're like driving and you ask Siri a question and you're hoping for a really quick answer back, and then Siri craps out and says, you want to ask ChatGPT, sometimes that handoff doesn't work well, and it's just even more annoying. So I think if they can bake it into to the Gemini experience and really just pump that up, then people are going to be a lot happier.
I mean, I'll be happier. I feel like That is the use case that I want for LLMs. Take my like bad mumbled query and give me something back that is useful in a moment, in a pinch, on my phone. Yeah. So, guess we just only have to wait to February or early March. We shall see. Coming up next, we got your segment about this new disruptive text-to-speech open source model, right?
We'll see how disruptive it is, but it was surprising to me how good it was for what it was.